The wee block.
The wee block.
Hello. Richard's on his way, and Lynn's coming. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm streaming this live on Quick. If you guys wanted to watch that on Quick as well, because I'm wanting to stream the Hangout. The iPhone won't connect, so I'm using Quick on the iPhone instead of the Hangout on the iPhone. So I've just tweeted the link to Quick.
In Twitter?
Yeah.
1 second.
So is this you want to come into?
Yes.
Will you introduce us?
Yes.
Good.
Should we give people a couple of minutes?
Yeah, we've got a couple on the way that we know are actually on the way.
Yep.
Yeah, Richard and I are on the way.
Okay, a few people coming in soon, so we're just sort of setting up.
Yeah.
So you got the Quick stream there?
Yeah. That's it.
I'm lucky up, right?
There we go.
There'll be a bit of a delay.
Oh my god, I had to cut 2,000 words from my thing because I did a stream of consciousness
Oh yeah. I can see myself now.
It was really bad retarded. Oh god, none of this makes sense. So that was kind of like, really throwing away hours.
But I think I will finish up
Yeah, it's a bit annoying, isn't it, with both going? Yeah, we're getting nasty feedback. Okay, Jason, you might need to close that quick window. We're getting sort of feedback, audio feedback.
What are you doing to a SpaceX?
Ouch. You were putting us on a space shuttle with a Russian behind you.
You'd rather do that.
The objective was I found that the strategy
Oh no, I'll
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Shall we start?
I quite enjoy their tactics in the house and their strategy.
Yeah, I think we'll get underway.
But this strategy is very limited, and it sort of discounted the impact of the media.
Okay, folks, I think we'll get started. So, welcome to what we've called the TheStorifyEvent. And for those of you who don't know me, my name's Tom Cochran. I'm with the Centre for Learning and Teaching, and been working with Helen and Andrew and Laurent and Avril. And really what we wanted to do was just kind of make a bit of an event, a bit of a celebration of what some of the students have been doing with their projects, because it's been really creative, quite cool work, and we thought it'd be a shame just to lose that as an assignment. It'd be really good to really celebrate that as sort of a event at the end. So we're streaming this live, and we've got a student in the UK who's joining us as well, because one of the projects with Laurent is just off the screen at the moment. They created this co-produced mobile movie with a group in Germany and in UK. France it was, France and the UK. And so we've got one of the UK students to present their video or talk about the project. Andrew's going to talk about a project he's been doing, and Avril, when she turns up. And Helen has two of her students who've done a really good job of the Storify project. So that was kind of the core of it, and we've decided to sort of make it a bit wider and to show you some of the stuff that we're doing. So let's just get back to the Hangout. So back to you, Jason. So do you want to tell us a bit about the Elvis 12 project? And if you want to sort of jump in there as well, Laurent, when you feel like it.
Yeah, it started off with a brief from Helen to sort of say, well, you know, this is the idea that we've got, and the whole project was based around sustainability. It was, I think there was 6 UK students, 2 French, 2 New Zealand. 4 New Zealand. What about 4 French? Oh, French.
I think 10 in New Zealand.
Okay.
14 in UK total.
No, I think it was 6 of them in the UK. There was in our group anyway. So basically, the brief was to make a sustainability sort of promotional film using mobile phones, iPads, you know, tablet, sort of portable media, and that was, you know, we undertook that in various different ways. For instance, we went out and filmed around the local area. We all came up with various different ideas and implemented that by organising ourselves into teams and saying, right, well, we'll do the filming for this bit, you film something else, and then we sort of arranged ourselves to edit the whole thing together. And then one of the UK lot for our group anyway did the music. We got the French guys to do the credits, and I think the New Zealand guys, they edited most of it, and then we did the sort of final last few shots and edited it all together.
So what tools did you use to collaborate across, you know, time zones and geography and stuff like that?
Well, we used, mostly our group used Facebook, but then obviously myself was involved with yourself and Helen and Laurent and Solène across using Google Hangouts, which is an invaluable tool, really. I know Tom was sort of always on the move on his phone whenever we're doing a hangout, so it's absolutely nice to see him sat down in a classroom for which, you know, this is the great thing about using portable media. It's, you know, it's a great tool. And then to edit it, we used Adobe Premiere, I think Final Cut, and I'm not sure what the French guys use for the credits to edit, but again, it's all been done using, you know, we've communicated our ideas through Facebook, we've used Google Documents, so yeah.
And also in terms of logistics, we use the blog as well.
Yeah.
So that was the core information. And to exchange the files, we use the Dropbox. And even to give some feedback, we are putting everything on the Dropbox. Sorry. My English is very bad today. I'm very tired. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, well I thought I'd just show them a little bit of your film, Jason. I've got a local copy here, just, you know, make sure it actually plays okay, so I'm just going to switch to that. So the Hangout will still keep going in the background, but I'm just going to play a movie locally here, so I'll play part of it for the guys here.
Okay.
Oh, before you play the movie, can we charge people $5 each?
maybe you have to ask them afterwards.
Yeah. We'll get back to
Okay,
you.
10 back then, 10.
Here we go. Feel free to make any comments you want while we're playing it, Jason. You can see it on the quick stream.
1 second.
We're in the UK now.
Sorry?
The movie's in the UK part now.
Right. 1 second. I can't actually find the window on one tool. There we go. Yeah, the UK part was filmed sort of in and around the university. It's based around Salford Quays, which is the new media city complex. We just thought that was quite an easy decision to make, really, because obviously the water location. It was quite easy to shoot the final scenes for the video. And I think it sums up Manchester pretty well.
What, weird?
Yeah, weather.
Where did they drop Wobble
It's coming up.
in? No, but where was the original thing?
Oh, that was New Zealand. Yeah. So it started in New Zealand, and now the bottle's all the way to the UK, to Manchester. Now the bottle's all the way to the UK. Okay, so been through the movie. That was very good. Anyone want to ask any questions to Jason or Laurent before we finish off with them? That is, I mean, we're going to continue.
Was there a difference in cameras between the New Zealand bit and the UK bit? Because the New Zealand bit seemed to have quite a lot of shake, whereas the UK bit didn't. Was there a difference in the cameras used?
I think I'm not entirely sure what cameras Megan and Liz used. To be honest, I know that myself for the filming for the Manchester bit was done using the iPhone 4 with sort of anti-shake image stabilization on it.
Yeah.
So
the New Zealand guys used iPod touches, and the camera's nowhere near as good as the iPhone 4.
Right,
yeah.
you could see that.
Yeah.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah.
And iPad 2 as well, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the same quality camera on the iPad 2 and the iPod Touch. Yeah.
Oh, right, I didn't know
Yeah, it's just a low-res 2 megapixel.
Okay.
Was there anything you learned from the project? Was there something that you do differently next time?
Well, one, not have a crash right in the middle of the project.
Car crash?
I had a bike crash right in the middle of the project and still managed to take part, so that's an achievement in itself. But yeah, I wouldn't do that again. But in terms of production, I think I'd make sure we were a lot more organised. It was quite disorganised. Obviously, we've not done anything like this before, so no one really knew what to expect and how to go about it. Really, I think with obviously the experience that we've gained from this project, I think next time if we were to do it again, it would be a whole lot better. The production, the whole way we went about it, the organisation, everything.
Yeah, I think it was a great learning experience. I think I probably need to leave it there, Jason and Laurent, and thank you very much for your input. And feel free to go to bed if you like, Jason, because I know it's 20 past 1 in the morning there.
Yeah, thank you very much.
But if you want to hang around, up here. I'll keep the hangout and the quick stream running if you want to follow along, but we're going to switch to the local guys now. So thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah. Bye.
Thanks.
Okay,
And I'm sorry, I need to go teaching,
Thanks.
so I will leave a hangout as well. I
Okay.
need to go teaching.
great. See you, Laurent.
Okay, bye-bye.
Alright. Bye.
See ya. Helen,
Yeah.
do you want to introduce your project?
Yeah. My part of the project was looking at how we could introduce social media tools into the classroom, because in communications, in journalism, in PR, in other communications areas, they're some of the most avid users professionally of social media tools. So we decided to look at how we can introduce the teaching of social media through the tools rather than about the tools. What we've done in the past is case studies, say, look, this is an example of where, say, journalists crowdsourced or whatever. And it doesn't, in that way, the students don't get a feel for what the tools are actually like in an authentic situation. So So we looked, Danny, Richard and myself, along with Tom, looked at ways we might be able to introduce into the classroom ways that students could learn through say, their assessments or through their classroom experience. So I brought Twitter into the classroom with mixed success. And another thing I decided to do was look at the traditional essay. Now, we've been doing essays the same way for hundreds of years, nothing wrong with that. But they basically use one mode, a mode of writing and a mode of reading. And nowadays, people don't learn that way, they don't communicate that way. So they communicate in a multimedia world in a multimedia way. So over the summer, I spent the summer with a student looking at the various tools that were out there that we might be able to use in a classroom situation. And one of those that came up was TheStorifyEvent, which is where you can still do the traditional essay writing and use traditional sources, but you can use that function to search the net for social, for things that are going on in blogs, on Twitter, in Facebook, and what have you. You can search all of those tools for discussions that are going on around your topic. So students could actually, one thing that was wonderful about this is that they were completely up to date. So books are often out of date, journal articles are out of date by the time they're published, certainly in this area. So the discussions that are going on right now on blogs, on various other platforms, even say Columbia Journalism Review and what have you, are right up to date. Also, one thing that Nikki and I found when we were marking this was that actually you could also check often, unless you're across everything that's been written about a topic, you have to take it on trust that the student is actually using this source correctly. In this particular program, you can go back to the source because they link to it. So you can actually go back and if you think, oh gosh, I don't know a lot about that, you can go and read and you know as much as the student by the time you've finished. So it's actually, it might take a bit longer to mark, but it's a learning environment for the tutor as well. You found that, didn't you?
Yeah. You know, I wasn't as across the literature as other people, because I was teaching to Helen, but it was fantastic because all the links, you can see that the student has used it in a good way or not in a good way. Is it relevant to the essay? And you can see immediately whether it's relevant or not, more than you can in a book reference or a
and I think it also excites the students a bit more because it's using material that they're much more familiar with. It's using video, it's using Twitter and what have you. It brings it into the essay.
So it's much more fun to mark.
Much more fun to mark.
There was video in it that were links to all sorts of cartoons, all sorts of stuff.
I ended up forwarding stuff going, ooh, this is quite fun. So, you know, the students, I felt, actually, they really made it fun for us to mark. So we're going to see a couple of examples. I'll sit down and hand over to the real expert. Caroline, are you first? Are you going to introduce yourself a little bit and your approach to it?
Yeah, I guess so. Just there's no screen on the front, so we're having to use the little guy, so it's just going to be a bit interesting. Great. So I actually really enjoyed this assignment. I thought it was totally new and unexpected, really. In terms of an essay, all of my essays had always been very academic and very much from books and journals and all these sorts of things. So being able to use this type of format was actually really fun, and it allowed me to be more chatty, I guess. I took on a really kind of blog kind of format. I hadn't done a lot of blogs before. And so mine was all very kind of chatty, slow feel in how it's written. So you'll see that when I go through. I'm not going to bore you with the entire essay, but I think if you hadn't seen Storify so much, I can show you at least how some of it works. That might actually be better for you. So bear with me for a second.
Two fingers to scroll.
Oh yeah, that's right. Come. So the topic was how has social media altered the relationship between journalists and public relations practitioners. That was the basis of it. And I started off with a bit of a shock factor. We learned a little bit about shock factor. So I don't know whether I should be showing you this, but anyway, it was kind of funny. I mean, in a very bad way. So in this example, basically a PR practitioner who was an employee of the company tweets something quite bad about a journalist, but it happens that the journalist works with this particular company. Okay. So he tweets, "Great gent reminds me of a girlfriend I once had. By girlfriend I mean that time I accidentally made love to an ugly, abhorrent racehorse." Now, in the end, it goes on and she says, "I hope you appreciate that you work for this company, and you'll bear the brunt of your idiocy at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning when you are unemployed. Good luck." That's the basis of that. Here's my little bit of shock factor. But as you can see with that, so there's a tweet, and then obviously within it's the link. So within this, you get to go right through back to the source. And then we have video.
Hey, I was just following up on that email I sent you yesterday.
So what? You know how many emails I get a day? You PR people are always bugging me. Can't you see I'm busy copying this press release and pretending I wrote it? Can you help a sister get a job?
Yeah. So again, yeah, I decided to use a bit of humour within my Storify.
That was nice too.
Then of course you go on to a bit more of the more serious side of defining what it is, that type of thing, and you can bring in plain old website articles, journalism. So so you can say, well, this is what it is through different websites. So there's a URL function within Storify which allows you to bring in these types of things. Cute pictures.
Which have nothing intellectual.
Nothing intellectual, but it's nice to be able to, literally I went to Google Images and looked for a person scratching their head and came up with that one, and it was too cute not to put in there. There's more videos in terms of educational things, and that is actually this particular video is actually quite cool. I'm not going to, it's quite long, but it's basically a guy just drawing the relationship between how we work with communications these days, that type of thing, and how it's changed us. But it's actually quite cool. I'll just show you what I mean quickly.
An analysis of traditional media channels which have been used for mass
But in terms of learning,
is a good way to begin to understand how communication.
It makes it really simple, and because it's in video format, it does just, more accessible for the kids these days.
Popular channels which are out there. So you have television, you have radio, and the newspaper. And these are great at reaching out to a mass audience. However,
Yeah, there you go. Do tell me and make me...
typically one-way channels. What I mean is that you could reach.
The other thing was that before we started this, Helen did say to us, you might find it difficult to connect, to make it flow, to have it flowing, because you've got so many examples like that. I didn't find it too difficult, but then I tried not to explain the example before I put it in there. I sort of like had the text and then popped the example in there and then made the person, do the connection, make the connection between the text and the example.
Caroline was probably the student that used the most of this format. Some of the other students used a lot more text and a lot less. But yeah, I thought you used it brilliantly. It worked really well. The way you did it.
Some of us are very good at it.
Again, more videos. So I mean, while you can be, chatty and fun and those things, you can also obviously have pieces that are.
And there's obviously a reference in there, lots of traditional references.
Yeah.
We did demand that. They had to do a traditional essay. This was on top of what was in a traditional essay.
Good and sorry.
Sort of all of us have blocked.
Yeah, the Arab Spring, like this example is just something that's actually a bit more serious, more tweeting.
Yes. I imagine that I would write blogs like the guy who wrote that 100 years ago. Unreadable and open-worded.
Sorry.
Let's go down. I want to talk. Oh, sorry. I want to look at what you said when we said McCain.
Okay. So this is when this part of the essay became more theoretical. So and it kind of needed a little lead-in because it'd been so chatty and everything prior to that it was like, well, now we've got to get a little bit serious and what do these guys just say? And then went into that. Thank you, Evan. And you can. These pictures of the diagrams and stuff, they're all online as well, so you can pop them in there. I don't know exactly what to tell you.
Yeah, I think it was a good mixture of traditional, you know, traditional sourcing, good arguments, but also you didn't have to find the diagram and put it in, or you could put it in if you wanted to. You know, it was a really good mix of blogs and video and funny bits and not funny bits and really serious.
Did it take you longer than a traditional essay?
It did, in terms of, you know, finding your examples, then yes, I mean, it took quite a bit of time to find them. But that was kind of fun. So it wasn't like a real chore to do. And I was actually a bit of a geek and was like, yeah, this is actually really fun. I really enjoyed doing it. So it wasn't hard in that regard.
One or two of the students actually created the Storify's on their iPads.
Yeah.
Did you use an iPad or?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. So that was one of the benefits of Storify, is there's actually a really good iPad app as well. So if students have an iPad, they can create the whole thing on an iPad and didn't even have to touch a computer. So it gave much more access to the technology as well.
What we did say was, though, that if they couldn't get it to work, they didn't have to use it, and probably 3 of them handed in an ordinary essay format. And I think that made it less stressful for
That's a good idea.
who felt that, you know...
Well, one of them didn't have access, was somewhere where he didn't have access, he couldn't get
Well, he
online.
put links on, so he must be. But, you know, it was just, I think there were some of the students who were a bit stressed by the whole Storify thing, and if you were, you didn't do it that way.
Well, that's interesting, because, you know, from a teaching perspective, did you use the same marking criteria?
Yes.
We didn't, so I didn't mark according to whether you'd use Storify well. So I was quite careful that I was marking according to the content, and it was great marking it this way, but the criteria for marking the essay were...
Yeah, that was only just modified slightly, the rubric, to include the medium.
She has done Storify really well, she's put lots of lovely, funny links in, there was nothing of that. It was whether the argument worked well in the same way that you would mark
Whether they
essay.
sourced it properly.
I think what really worked as a student was it freed you up to be a little creative and think about the topic in a way that you wouldn't when you look into traditional essay mode.
I understand that, but I'm looking at it from the other way around, because one of the biggest challenges when you set different types of assessment is to make it equitable by having similar criteria.
Yeah.
And that's my reason, not so much, you know, I can imagine.
We had a problem with, one of the issues we had was actually, ethically we couldn't really say to everybody you have to do it when we're not teaching, when we're not actually teaching how you do it. So we had to think through how we would make it equitable with the marking if people didn't do it. And that was something that we were quite careful about. We did ask that they still use 3 social media, they had to use 3 sources and 3 social media platforms. They could do that without embedding. They could just put the link and we could cut and paste it into there. It wasn't quick, and it didn't, so they still had to use the sourcing. They just didn't have to use the platform.
They all had links in there. If you put it in a traditional essay format, you were expected to embed links into that.
We probably better move on to the next example, because we've still got a couple more things to cover.
Caroline, can you send me a link to that?
Yep.
Would you like to do it again in other courses?
To use Storify now? Yeah, I mean, sure. Yes, I mean, I really honestly enjoyed doing it. And the platform itself isn't hard to learn. It's actually quite simple to learn if you are, 101 computer like me. I did have one or two little saving disasters, but
I think a few people did some of those.
yeah.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
And the other thing is, we found that if you don't publish, we couldn't pick it up.
Yeah.
They had to give us the password and
Their
everything.
own password for it in order to pick it up if they didn't want to publish it.
Definitely found, though, that it was easier to manage your sources through using Storify, because you could keep them all on the page while you were working with them. And I like to research while I write, so it enabled me to do that.
Do you have a reference page on this?
Yes, at the bottom. Sorry, I'm logging out. But yeah, there's just a normal bibliography like anyone else's. But yeah, we kind of had a bit of discussion around that. I mean, I put mine in there in terms of all of the websites and stuff that I'd used, but I think some may have just left it in because you can go to the sources.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Some
already
people just
in
put the
there.
academic references at the bottom and obviously use the sources.
Right, so. Can I just put my name in?
Yeah. Just log in as yourself.
The only thing I'd say is really different between Storify and traditional lessons is the tone that the students seem to take. They seem to get much more relaxed, and their language is less academic, and that seems to be almost exclusively. And I think
there were some.
Almost, yeah, but yeah, there were some that retained it. But on the whole, it just seems that the whole format gets them more.
It'll come
more
up with your
chatty.
story.
I don't think that's a problem too much, but some people might.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So you just click on your name, it should take you to your page.
Okay.
Your Storify.
Oh, here we
There
go.
you go.
I think we were allowed to be chatty.
Yeah, I said it didn't matter. Yeah.
But you could, yeah, you
It was
could.
a requirement.
Could you have written it in a more formal style and still made Storify work?
I don't think it would have been fun, but
Yeah.
I guess so.
I didn't really adapt the way that I wrote terribly on Storify compared to how I'd write on a blog or an essay, because I do write rather old school, so I think my essay reflected that a little bit, and in comparison to a lot of the essays around, it was quite dystopian and negative about the potential for social media to actually have a positive impact on the relationship between PR and journalism, but I thought it'd be nice to be different. And so I started with some classic manufacturing consent, because that's the go-to for any dystopian writing on social media. And what I wanted to do was just set a conversational tone for the essay before launching into a very descriptive text-based analysis of why the relationship between journalists and PR practitioners is forever in the favor of PR now. And I looked at, again, what was great about Storify was that you were able to move a lot of the text that you wanted into links and other things, and for someone that has trouble getting down to a word limit, that was very useful. And I'm sure a lot of the classmates did complain somewhat about how massive my Storify thing was in comparison to theirs, but I liked embedding my sources right into there, and I found that it enabled me to get a mix between, current examples and theorists that I think haven't really lost their validity even in a new social media paradigm. And what I quite liked was getting the practitioner perspective that you're able to do through utilizing Twitter and things like that. So you're able to back up a theory by someone that works in the discipline and getting their commentary on it. And basically I just unpacked different theories about how you would conceive the relationship between the two, whether it was through a political economy approach or something more positive that looks at the ability to democratize communication. And when I couldn't find a quote, I went on Twitter myself and made one up, which is being a little bit creative, but there you go, it's Storify for you. And I do like the ability to, still bring out the theories that I think hold a lot of validity here. So I put in a lot of Chomsky and quite negative things like that. But I tried to cover all the theorists that you'd expect, like encoding, decoding with Hall, social economy of the media, looked at like McLuhan and technological determination, and then I kind of set the scene on what the traditional relationship was like, and then tried to break up what was probably a very mundane essay with some fun videos. And I thought that the more entertaining extra sources I put in there, the more likely it was that the Margas would keep on reading and not just stop. So I definitely tried to use it to my advantage, but I did find myself writing an essay and then figuring out how to stick it into the format rather than starting it the other way around, which probably added another 4 to 5, 6 hours to the essay, which maybe wasn't necessarily intelligent, but there you go. And I guess what I quite liked was working in social media. I was able to utilize a lot of practical things that I had seen through, people, opinion leaders and bloggers that I found interesting, and was able to use them as examples rather than having to write them out. So it kind of makes it more interactive and puts less emphasis on your hand cramping after like 10 hours of writing. And I think the basis for my article was just trying to set the scene that while the internet theoretically is a democratizing thing through how it's set up, that hasn't really altered the power structures inherent in media, and if anything, the way that search engines are structured, with the link, the richest content increasing the most links being the most viewed, it's actually condensed mass opinion rather than spreading it out. So you're only going to listen to Fox and CNN again rather than your mum's blog, which might get 5 views over its lifetime. But what I really enjoyed was you can embed an entire article right in your essay, and when you wanted to pick bits from it, you can refer back to it while you're writing, which I found was quite interesting and useful. And I think what helps here is that you're able to build a narrative while you're writing. So I wanted to sort of chart changing relationships between journalists and PR practitioners and how certain outside external factors have affected it, like, changes in the newsroom and immediacy and the need to break stories rather than investigate them. And I found that I quite enjoyed using stories like this to back up what I was saying, because professionals can say it much better than me. And we get their ads as well, which is delightful.
There's really 2 ways that we get our information. One way is the traditional image of journalism, and that is this wonderful woman right here with the glasses turns to this woman next to her and says, "Hey, you look like a journalist. You've got the little, you got pen, stuff like that. We've got a problem in my neighborhood. There's a toxic waste dump or something because the kids are getting sick, and I called the mayor, I called the state government, I called everybody, nothing is happening. You need to go write about it, journalists. And this is your job. This is what you do for a living. You're not doing 3 other jobs during the day, putting your kids to sleep, and then trying to blog at night. This is your job. You are a journalist. Go out and write about this problem." And so journalists, you go out, you write about it. You ask questions, you look back at records, you use all the skills and all the training you have, and you find out there was a toxic waste dump there. You go to the mayor, you speak truth to power, and something happens. Right? That's the old way. That's one way that we think of information coming to people. The other way is power speaks its truth to us. They hold a press conference, they put a video news release out, they in some way manage a story to make us talk about it. Power decides what the debate is, what we should be thinking about it, what the parameters of the debate are.
This theory basically framed my entire analysis, so I really enjoyed being able to add the video into it rather than having to write it out like over a page. So this is the big thing, 86%
of the stories of power
students writing.
Only 14% fit that traditional journalism model. You think, well, that's really rough for Baltimore. Yeah. We studied cities across the United States.
This is really good.
Across the United States, in 1960, We had one journalist for every one
Okay, well,
relations
we
person.
probably better move on.
Oh, yes, right.
We had
And basically, what was interesting about this guy's analysis was charting how in journalism and PR it's now power speaking to journalists rather than them acting as gatekeepers. And I found the story and the facts that he used to back it up really compelling in my article, which was nice. And if I'm going to skip really quickly, I thought it'd be mean to not provide the counterpoint, and what is great is that there's just so much information out there on the internet that you can access quickly, even if you are going to write a really wordy and negative article. You can actually easily find counterpoints, and I found that, you know, being able to link straight to PR companies and companies' blogs and then back up what you're saying really helped. Like the GM Fastlane blog is particularly relevant for that, and instead of having to write out theories, you're able to get the authors talking about them themselves, and I find that's a lot more compelling because they can do it better than I can.
A lot more authentic in some ways, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're not.
Yeah, and I just think, you know, hearing like a journalist talk earnestly about the death of investigative journalism rather than me write it over, you know, a 10-minute essay is a lot more powerful for the reader.
Did you learn as much then that you could just maybe watch a couple of seconds of that and think, oh, that's relevant?
Well, I watched the whole thing because it actually got me more interested in the topic while I was writing. I found that I've retained a lot more from writing this than I do with the usual essay, because it's not just a text dump. It's not just me trying to cram in 15 theorists into one essay. I was actually able to take a second and listen to what these people had to say and then contextualize it in what I was thinking.
But ideally, that's what a text-based essay should be doing.
Yeah, I know, but the reality with some of us out there who are not the world's most organized people is we just don't have the time for it. So I really enjoyed mixing this up a little bit, and you know, it did keep it fresh for you writing it as well as, I guess, reading it. And what's great is you can include all your sources, and they're easy to find straight there off the page, so they can tell if you're trying to cheat it. Other than that, yeah, I highly recommend letting your students try it out, because I think they'll get a lot more out of what they're writing. You know, their research will be more than just reading a book. For people that learn through hearing a conversation rather than reading a chapter, they'll be a lot more engaged by the ability to, you know, actually learn that way. And so, being one of those people, I found Storify particularly cool to that. And that's why, you know, even now I like reading the article, because it's got some information there that I was surprised when I stumbled across, and I was really happy to, you know, sort of create the narrative as I went along rather than have to plan it in my head in advance. But yeah, that's more or less me.
Awesome. Well, we do need to move on, so thank you, and we'll probably need to save the questions for a bit later, because I'm just going to put Andrew up now, because Andrew has to rush off to a meeting, and then we'll come back to Avril. Yeah. So just load it up on there, that's fine.
PDF to start with.
And you can just open up Postures.
You should open from the PDF.
Okay. So Andrew's from Product Design, if anyone doesn't know Andrew, and what he was doing there was getting students to engage with blogging in a research project where they're looking at creating products to make bus trips within Auckland City much more engaging and more inviting, you know, to get more people on buses, basically, I think, was the project.
How do I get to your desktop?
Just Apple tab, Command tab.
Okay. Very quickly, because I need to go, but I thought it might be quite nice just to talk a little bit about the overarching project, because it kind of gives it a context. In terms of what I'm trying to do in my fellowship is, I have a small department, product design, in the School of Art and Design, and I guess it's kind of going from I would say, almost a Luddite state to engage with mobile learning. I mean, that's not the true story, because I think we're in a lot of different positions. But what we've done is created a community of practice where we meet with the staff members to kind of engage with mobile learning. But the idea is that we can move into this future state, but more importantly, that will inform what we do with our students and how they deal with mobile learning and what have you. But of course, a lot of those students are ahead of us in many ways, and that's kind of an interesting thing where we're all in different positions, and it's in many ways is teasing that out. But if I could kind of give you a little bit of an overview of what we're trying to do, and it is quite a bit. So we have this community of practice, and there's two sides to it. There's mobile devices and iPads and what have you, and getting our heads around those and how we use them. And then there's the kind of the software of the mobile device, the social media side of that, getting us to start blogging and using Twitter and what have you, and just seeing how we can use that and how that will inform, and we can take that into the classroom. What we have is fantastic learning environments, the physical spaces where the students work and do great stuff and make lots of models and what have you. But of course the mobile side of things opens up a whole set of new possibilities. So there's kind of three aspects to that. Getting the students to blog, and I'm just going to show you a couple of blogs in a moment, is a really important part of that, because now we put so much emphasis on the in-studio making and what have you and putting lots of work up. Yet our students are going out into the environment and doing lots of great research. So trying to find that balance is really important. I'm also developing a set of kind of online resources to support that studio environment. I won't be able to show you, but I can hint at what we're doing. And the last thing is actually getting the students to use mobile devices in their learning. Our approach is very much based on what we call design thinking, which is about going out, doing a lot of observations, really getting in touch with the user, which informs the kind of creative process. Then we take through a kind of a design process and evaluate ideas. There's another side of that as well I'm very interested in, also sort of the front end of the teaching, but also how we assess students, and can we develop some smart tools in the assessment process. That kind of hints at this design thinking toolbox, and currently we're developing a set, almost like methods cards that you give students and they use them in the design process. But having gone to that Apple session the other day, I was quite inspired by turning that into an I-authored sort of online tool that you can use in your iPad and what have you. So the first thing that we've done is, just to kind of get that process going, is in that first project we got the third-year students to kind of look at the experience of a bus journey, right, and then identify what the kind of key issues were, the sort of problematic things that happen in that bus journey, and use that for the catalyst in the design process. So it's almost a three-way process between what you do in the studio and then what you do online, and then the kind of collaborative stuff that happens in the middle. So this was kind of the first step for us, actually, to start using blogs in that learning process. And I kind of can't emphasise it's quite a big step to go to that. So in many ways what we're doing in the first sense was very much a kind of what we call a quick prototype. It's like, let's just try it and do it with Tom's support. And for me it was almost like I felt like I was trailing the students as they started to get up to speed. So I'm just going to show you some examples, and hopefully we can, hopefully this will take us through to one of the examples, and I'll just kind of take you through that. I just might have to log into, oh no, it comes into Posterous. So we decided to use Posterous, which I had a little bit of debate with Tom in terms of which platform, and of course there's lots of platforms out there. I think where I'm up to myself is using WordPress, which I think is a fantastic, but that almost came after our experience with Postgres. So the students were put into teams of 3. Each of those groups worked on the project, but of course had to blog the whole journey through using Postgres. The good thing about having all the teams on Postgres is you've got one place to go to, you can find all the blogs and you can see what the students are doing and you can kind of track the project. So it's quite interesting that we have a great studio space, they're going out and doing stuff, but then they're starting to put their work online. And it's the way we saw it is the studio space is literally the dump, right? You just do lots of work and you get stuff up on the walls, and then you start selecting and writing and putting up on a blog, and there's actually a third part of that where the students put a portfolio. So working between those 3 spaces is something that, you know...
So it's about reflection.
It's about reflection, it's about sorting, it's about looking and about communicating and collaborating.
And they have to do it? Is it compulsory?
Yeah, we did make it compulsory. Some teams did it better than the others, and again, it was just a quick go at it for us, and we're still sort of sorting that out. What's really emerged from this is quite interesting, is the next project, we didn't say you had to use Postgres. So they actually have found other tools. So we've got some using Tumblr, some using WordPress. Some of them have stayed quite comfortable in Postgres.
But do you tell them they have to blog with the next one?
They have to blog. And again, it's that 3-way process. So we do look at the blog. I think the good thing about the blog is we're able to track, and I find it's really good before I go and meet the students. We actually can see what they've done. So I feel like I'm much more prepared when I talk. What we're not doing, or we're not good at, is actually starting to comment on the blog. We've done it a little bit, but that's the process. So I'll just very quickly show you an example.
Well, one of the things we, I guess the defining factors for the platforms was we wanted something that would work on their phones. So we surveyed them all. They all had a phone capable of blogging of some type. So we were after blog hosts that had good at mobile apps as well, so Postgres was really good for that, WordPress was really good for that. And so they could take photos and then blog it right from the site where they were.
Yeah.
I guess one of the, I'm just sitting there reflecting on what I was going to say, and it's quite interesting because I'm watching communication students talking a lot about writing, and of course we're very visual and our students don't write very well. And then one of the first things that occurs to me when I look at what they've done is how much writing they've done.
Yeah.
And I think that's a major breakthrough for us, is that it's almost like they're putting far more words up than I thought and less pictures. So when you start looking through this, you can actually start seeing that they're talking about their bus ride experience. So we got them to go out and actually experience bus rides and start to reflect on that. So, unfortunately it doesn't look that pretty because all you're seeing is lots and lots of writing going on, and there's probably 3 or 4 pages of writing.
I think their level of critique was quite impressive really for a first-time project.
Yeah, I think,
Rosa Parks. Needed uppercase P, but it's a good example.
We also got them to use a little bit of social media in their research. They started to use Facebook to put out little questionnaires and surveys to find out what other people were doing in terms of bus rides and what have you. Again, that was quite experimental. I think I was quite far behind what the students were doing, and in many ways I think they overcomplicated. They almost used too many research methods and they went further than we expected, but it was good to see and start to see that stuff coming through using Twitter and what have you. And I'll just jump through, so if we sort of go forward in time now on this particular one, you start to see, I'll go to maybe number 2. I guess also one of the things I don't like so much about the Postgres is there's, unlike WordPress, where you can create lots of templates and you can really put a really lovely, almost website together, you're a little bit more limited in Postgres, although I think this group used the Postgres to its fullest potential. So you can start to see they're putting all sorts of imagery in there, and this is much further through. Probably what I've just missed is lots of drawing and model making and brainstorming, which they're picking out, photographing the walls, putting that up on their spaces, and then we're moving through where they're starting to put examples of CAD and what have you. They're putting their presentations up there, and again it's just really nice to be able to jump in and out and see what they're up to and how they're doing it.
If you purchase a domain on this format, can you mod it, or is that?
Limited, very limited, unlike WordPress. And I guess one of the things we've also talked about is moving forward, because we use Blackboard and what have you, is I think we're in a position, I'm totally sold on the blog side of things, and particularly WordPress, where you know, we may look next year to get all the first year students to literally kind of blog their whole journey through the 3 years and create a really nice site that they'll keep building and adding to, and that becomes almost their e-portfolio over that time. It just makes a huge amount of sense to us.
We were able to make a website from scratch on WordPress for one of our things, which was a lot easier than if you tried to do it just off the top of your head, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, these days it's almost silly to try and code your own site.
Yeah.
You know, with fantastic tools like that you can customise so much. It's just it's no-brainer, really.
Yeah. You can basically go into Google, learn how to code, and make your own website.
Yeah.
This particular group, what they did is they did an emotional timeline. They mapped the emotional highs and lows in that journey, and again, trying to identify what the hotspots were, the problematic, where your confidence goes down when you're waiting for the bus, on the bus it goes up, and your confidence goes down when you don't know where to get off. And
Remarkably similar, aren't they?
yeah, again, they almost went overboard in the research, almost too deep. We did this project with Auckland Transport. They came in and saw the students' results, and they were very, very excited. And I'll just very quickly show you this group, and then
we'll have to wrap up.
We have to wrap up.
Yeah. I think that's quite a good lead into Apple's.
You can see some of the
project.
results. They redesigned a bus stop there. So, they had lots of levels of innovation around community and connection and information, what have you. So hopefully that gives you an idea. Well, thank you.
But I think one of the themes coming through with the projects that all 4 of you have done with the students is the level of engagement and the fact that the students have actually gone beyond, you know, what you've asked of them. So in particular, like for Everill's students, their project wasn't even assessed. It's just completely voluntary project, and they just went completely overboard on it and did fantastic. You know.
Andrew, was yours assessed? Did you give them a mark for it?
Yeah. But it was a sort of a three-way where we look at the physical work, we look at the blog, and we look at the portfolio, and we're very clear that it's actually the grades, the criteria sits across. It's just a different set of lens that we look at the work, and I think to me that's the key. It's not like we're giving a percentage for the blog. It just sits in that, you know, we're looking, as I say, looking at the work in a different sort of a way, and it's a different type of work that we're looking at that contributes to the criteria.
You don't give a mark for the blog?
No. With the analysis, we're looking at analysis, and of course it does sit across the 3 levels of work.
Does that make it quite difficult to mark?
To be quite honest, I think the blog was a very small part of how we marked, but what I didn't tell you, the students give a PDF portfolio, which is yet another kind of selection of work that almost presents the project in a very kind of linear way, but it has elements that are feeding through. So there's reflection in the portfolio that they're pulling out of the blog and rewriting, and I think that's where it works really well, because it's on the fly talking and then putting it into the portfolio and then just kind of sorting it out and tidying up the language and what have you.
So these are all really good questions, but I think we probably need to talk about those at a later stage. I'll do that. So I can show one of the videos.
Yes, why don't we do that? Because I just want to say the students did this. They're already working on a big global collaboration project,
That's a group of 3 students.
which is also a lot of extra work. Sorry.
Andrew.
So because it's public relations, this project, we looked at, first of all, we looked at different ways they could use social media for public relations, to familiarise themselves with different applications. And then we also linked with 3 other countries, which was Germany, Spain and England, to collaborate. So the students ideally could collaborate and vote on each other's work. So that made it added dimension. At the same time, the students also worked on a different global project where they were collaborating with 11 other countries on another global project. So it was a big workload that they undertook, because there was an expanding workload in their GlobCom project, and then this one was an additional one, which was completely student-led and not even marked. So, Sean, was it a difficult experience? You really enjoyed this aspect?
Well, I enjoyed learning how to make a website, but the not marked thing took our wind out initially, but then we all thought, well, wait a second, we're here to learn something, so we might as well do that. And then once we all, you know, kind of thought of the assignment that way, what new thing can we learn, you know, about public relations, the practical side of it, you know, new media and stuff, everyone got behind it, and it was actually quite fun in the end. So yeah, it was really cool. And we got to be really creative about how we wanted to present the information as well, which was quite cool.
So we've just got a couple of examples.
Yeah, I'll just show one of them. This is the Localist.
Okay, this is the Localist, which is an app, and the students, they also looked at the use of QR codes, which are all around the place and in the library as well, which gave some of the people who watched it last time a bit of a shock, including our head of department.
The idea behind Localist was essentially sitting and saying that if you thought about, you know, things that Aucklanders were looking for, you know, we thought that there was a real opportunity to provide a service which helped Aucklanders find what was good around Auckland. Because at the moment you can find, you know, there's lots of services that will help you find stuff around Auckland, but there's not that many things that will actually help you find what's good. So what we wanted to do was harness the power of social recommendations. So the idea that, you know, all of us trust what our, you know, community and our friends and people we know tell each other. So the service that we're really building is about providing Aucklanders with the opportunity to find the best of Auckland as opposed to just stuff around.
I'm hungry. You guys want to ice cream? Yeah, should we do a local thing for that? Yeah, that's how you do that. Video's right in 3.5 steps.
To show other countries what was happening in Auckland. Berlin was profiling itself, Barcelona and Manchester.
Yeah, so one of the groups in Berlin went around interviewing people and taking videos of questions about what social media they used. And of course a lot of that was in German, but they also subtitled it.
And then each country voted using Everywhere poll.
And this one, I think, got the best vote from New Zealand. I think it's just quite neat how they created a story about the whole app and then recorded that. Yeah, the sound wasn't great because the backing track's a bit too high. So there we go. That was one of the videos, which is the Localist, and there was 4 groups. Do you want to tell us what the 4 groups were, Deborah?
Well, one of them looked at QR codes, how they're used a lot. Another one looked at Sean's doing somewhere.
Big Little City. Yeah, it's basically like the Localist, but
yeah, very similar app.
Controlled methods rather than publicly generated.
And it showed how, and then some of them put them on Tumblr. It was just using different formats. This is a video. They used different formats to show them, and then they were all placed on a site, and they were voted on through Poll Everywhere, looking at, in different aspects. The only thing is that with Poll, there was no real criteria, was it? But it showed.
No, it was just vote for the best one.
One that you like.
So we just kept it very, very simple.
But the main thing about this was everyone became really, really engaged with it. It's quite exciting in that aspect of it.
So, Sean, what do you recommend? Do you think it should actually be an assessed project next year?
Yeah, I know the students would have liked that.
could make it a Storify project.
Yeah, something like that, definitely. I know we all enjoyed doing it, and we all learned something from it. What was really cool was the assignment, you know, kind of forced us to go out to the public and meet PR practitioners. Like, we went and met with OMD Digital and people like that in order to get them to answer the questions that we can, and like do interviews with them. And from a purely selfish level, it's a good networking opportunity, but it's also good to actually learn from someone in the industry as well.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly important as part of your building your connections, and I think not only locally, but the potential is there in these global projects to build those connections internationally. You know, and look beyond New Zealand. We've had several students in the past doing these sorts of projects that have actually got jobs overseas as a result. Yeah. So awesome, thank you guys. We've obviously got over our time and everyone's lunchtime, but thank you very much.
Thank you.